to start on this side because I'm going to walk my journey for you today. But just a quick on the doctorate. So I do have a doctorate in business administration. That means I did research. I created a dissertation through the process. I wrote a full book on that. Then I did another doctorate in psychology, organizational psychology, and I wrote another dissertation on that, did research on that. And then I took those two and turned them into our work that I do today, which is executive coaching, leadership training, and really helping women advance. The third was the ones they just give away. And I appreciate those too, because that means I did some work for them to say, look, we want to honor you and share with the world what you have done for women. And so through that work, I got there through a journey. And I want to walk you through my journey. Is that okay? As I mentioned before, I'm a researcher. So I love data and I love to understand human behavior, right? Because I have that psychology thing going on. I'm not going to psychoanalyze anybody, I promise. Even though I probably know more about yourself than you know. I want to acknowledge people in the room. So in the room, I know for sure there are women here who are named helpers, right? You're the relational people in the room and you want to help everybody you can. And you walk through the helping your life, helping everybody, right? To the point of your detriment. And actually, you're the one that should say no when you should say yes, and yes when you should say no, right? So when I say, somebody says, can I help you? You go, no, 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 no. No, you know you need help, but you say no, right? But then when it's time for you to do something, you don't say no. When somebody says, can you help me? And you already have a full plate. I know you in the room, right? I also want to acknowledge that there's women in the room who are knowledge seekers, meaning you are question askers to possibly your detriment, right? Because people then say she asks too many questions. Shut her down. Stop her from talking. She's always asking questions, right? And I want you to know, I know you're here. And then there's these women who go to the grocery store and they have lists as long as this, right, stage, right? We need a list for everything. We follow the rules. And when you don't follow the rules, we're concerned that you don't follow the rules, right? We don't want you to change our plans. So don't come in the house, husbands, with your, hey, we should do this. Not for us, right? So women, I know you're in the room. I know you go to the grocery store with that list because I love a list too. Nothing like a good list. And then lastly, I know there's women in the room where you're just action oriented. Spontaneous is your place. You want to be spontaneous in every moment. Let's do something now. Let's make it happen now. Let's not wait. I also know you're in the room. And I want to say to all of you that I just identified, we all have a journey. And we all are okay in who we are in those spaces. So don't let anyone tell you that you think too much, you ask too many questions, you help too much, you plan too much. Those are all who we are, and we have to own that. And I had to learn that through my journey. So why do I say disruption? I'll start this. I was diagnosed at the age of 16 with lupus. And when I was diagnosed, the doctor says, well, yeah, you have lupus and you're going to have a different life now. 16. And I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to have a different life. Disruption. I decided that I'm going to do research. Right. I'm a researcher. 16. I'm going to do research on what that means. What is lupus? And back then, I hate to say that word because that means I'm older. But then there wasn't a lot for me to research on. Some of you may know what I'm talking about. There was encyclopedias at my neighbor's house that I had to go research what lupus meant. And what was that going to be for me, right? So I had to disrupt the norm because the norm says just listen to the doctor and take the medicine. And they wanted me to take prednisone because back then they were pumping you with it. Or they wanted me to take some other thing for it. It was some kind of, arthritis medicine. And so I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to figure out what this is so then I can figure out how to move forward for good health. Right? Disruption. I decided to be an advocate for myself at the age of 16. Right? So then from that, I moved on and I said, okay, I want to, now that I've got this thing, I got another whammy came my way, right? It's like, okay, not only do you have lupus, now you have fibromyalgia. So I'm like, okay. So now I have fibromyalgia. So let me go see what this is. Then it turned to lupus-like syndrome, which meant that I was in the hospital for 4 months trying to figure out what was wrong with me. But let me tell you, I worked, I went to school, I continued. I disrupt the norm because the norm was me to stay in and go, oh my God, I'm sick. I don't know what I'm going to do. I kept disrupting the norm. I was sick for almost 2 years with, they called it lupus-like syndrome. They couldn't understand what was wrong with me. They had me pumping myself because they said I was insulin resistant diabetic, by the way. Did I throw that one in there? And they told me that I had to pump myself. Now, if you're diabetic, you'll know what I'm talking about. With R was this, so there's 2 types of insulin. There's R, which is fast acting, and then there's NPH, which is a little slower reacting. They had me pumping my stomach, full cc syringe, 3 times a day with purified port insulin because they didn't know what was wrong with me. So I kept doing my own research. I kept trying to figure this out because I'm like, I am not going to let this stop me. I remember calling the doctors, I think I'm dying because I had lost so much weight. I was down to 98 pounds. I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Put me in the hospital for a month. I then came out of the hospital 168 pounds, full of steroids, but I was still living. And then I went on this whole health kit journey. I said, I'm going to do nothing but herbs. I'm going to figure this out. And I did. And that sparked so much more in me. That sparked my research in my doctorate degrees. That sparked my research in my master's degrees, and me understanding humans, understanding how women can push forward, how we can disrupt norms, right? Disruption is not a bad thing. Disruption is saying that I'm going to do the opposite of what it says that I should be doing, unless I have data that represents otherwise. So taking the time to find the information that I needed to find to be able to help me move forward and be better. My career then shot, right? I went from being in a career where I started from here, worked my way up. I became a vice president. I'm going real fast. There's a whole big journey right here. But right, I became a vice president. Then when I became a vice president, I decided to start my own company, disrupting norms throughout my entire career, saying, I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to find this information out. And I had the pleasure of working with several men who taught me how to disrupt, how to do things differently. I learned their strategies. I learned their information. I learned how to build a business. I learned how to grow a business. I've learned how to be able to position myself, because we are not taught positioning. We're not taught strategy in the workplace. And so I took all that and I used all that for my own advancement. And I kept moving up, until I decided, once I got into that vice presidency level and I was asked to be a president of a college, I said, I'm at a place where I feel like I'm giving all my IP away. Like I'm giving you all my intellectual property. I'm doing all this work for you guys. And you're taking it and creating things with it. And then I'm getting the paycheck, not a bad one. But it could have been bigger with some bonuses. But they weren't teaching me that. Right? And so I said, I turned to my husband. I remember I said, I want to go ahead and take all this research that I've done, and I want to open up a company. I want to start my own business. I want to be the CEO of my company, and I want to help women advance in careers. I want to teach them positioning. I want to teach them strategy. I want to teach them how to hear and be aware. I've heard that word today. It's a good word. Be aware of what's going on. Understand emotional intelligence by applying it, not just saying you know it, right? Thinking about, what does that mean to be aware? That means asking yourself, what am I missing? What is it to be able to regulate your emotions through things? That means that you have to pause for strategy. You have to be taught that. If not, we move through what we know. We know what we know until we grow. But we have to push forward of that stuff. We have to be able to know that there are other things for us. But in order to do that, that's why I believe coaching is the answer. Because we don't know it all on our own. You need a strategy partner. And that's why I started my company. Because I'm like, I can walk one woman at a time through the process. Whether you're starting your own business, whether you're moving up in your career, whether you need to just position yourself because you're in a room full of individuals that you have to be different than. Right? And I wanted to teach every single woman. And that's been my purpose. My goal in life now is to make sure every single woman advance. Now, my company, we help men. I love you, men. I have a husband. But I really started, and all my research was around women advancement. And once I found an opportunity to be able to do that, I started doing that. And my company grew so quickly because I didn't even know the need was there. The fact that women were like, I need this. I need somebody who can tell me this. And not that mentorship is not great, but it's something about when you invest yourself in the executive coaching space, it changes because now we're having conversations about how do I advance you today? How do I shift your mindset today? How do I put you in a position where I know they're going to see you? That's what I do. So what I do want to leave you with is that if you are interested in just focusing on being disruptive in a positive way, I have actually these in posters. I actually have all these posters. I do this training, go around and do this talk often. And so we made up posters to be able to help you and just motivate you. Keep your eye on the prize. And we can also talk about executive coaching if you're interested. But come and see me at the table when we have our break. I would love for you to have a poster. I would love to sign it for you. But I also would love to encourage you to know that you can position yourself to move up and move your career where it should be. And that executive coaching is just one way of doing that with mentorship actually next to it, because I do appreciate mentors. I need them both to be able to help you advance your career. But that's what we do. That's what I do. That's what I love. And I'm happy to be here today to serve and support you all.